Good morning. I'm Angela Sicoli, your president of New Jersey Realtors, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Managing Stress and Coping with COVID-19. We want to thank the Health Alliance Network for making this webinar possible. The Health Alliance Network, is a New Jersey Realtor member perks partner, is a telemedicine and wellness provider. Plans include unlimited doctor visits and 3 hours of behavioral health counseling. New Jersey Realtors members receive the first month free and discounted prescriptions thereafter, and also a 3-hour member counseling. I'm sorry. Their contact information will be made available after the webinar. Our speakers this morning are Paul Jaquith, President and CEO of Mental Health America of Southeast Florida, and Bob Davison, CEO of Mental Health Associations of Essex and Morris County. Both are seasoned professionals in the mental health and addiction fields, and both are CEOs of their respective organizations. They are uniquely qualified to discuss challenges about maintaining good mental health wellness, as well as challenges in running a business in these forever changing times. Please welcome Paul and Bob.
Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Jaquith. Hold on one second. I think this is better if I do this. Good morning, everybody. As I said, I'm Paul Jaquith. I am the CEO of Mental Health America of Southeast Florida, located in Broward County, Florida. We provide services to residents of Miami-Dade County and Broward County from a mental health and addictions perspective. Let me just fix this. We provide an array of services, but we also connect people with services. Myself, I have over 30 years of experience in dealing in mental health and addictions. I am the CEO of this organization, so I know very well about the issues presented, both from an emotional and therapeutic standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. We're a small organization. We employ about 32 to 34 individuals. So we're very much aware of the issues that are faced both from a health issue as well as from a financial issue. Bob, I'll give you a second to introduce yourself.
Good morning, Paul. It's good to be with everyone. My name is Bob Davison. I'm with the Mental Health Association of Essex and Morris, right here in Montclair, New Jersey. We provide similar services to Paul's association in Florida. I've been in the field for more than 30 years. I'm a licensed professional counselor. So I'm looking at this from mental health and a health perspective, but also similar to Paul, we're also a business. We have more than 200 employees. Several aspects of our service have been deemed essential by the governor, so many of us are still in the office, still working, so I'm very familiar with those dynamics as well.
Okay, thanks, Bob, and thanks for joining us. When this was first presented to us here in Florida, we did want to have someone on a local level in New Jersey. Bob and I both represent affiliates of the National Mental Health America, which is located in Washington, D.C., representing a variety of mental health associations and mental health Americas all over the United States. There are a number located in New Jersey, not just Bob's organization, but there are other ones as well. There are a lot of services available to people. So what we want to do this morning is talk a little bit about what the issues are that we're facing from our perspective. And I know that there's an opportunity to post questions. We ask you to do that as we go through. If we're talking about something that generates a question from your perspective, and it could be about anything. I mean, whether it's something going on at home or something with you personally or a family member, and you'd like to try to get some clarification, anything we can do to try to help you with that, we'd be glad to do that. As Bob and I both mentioned, we have many years experience in dealing with clinical issues. I'm a licensed clinical social worker also, and an addictions professional. So between Bob and myself, we probably can address just about any issue that comes up. But we did want to make sure that for all of you that are representing the New Jersey Realtors Association, that you understand that there are services available. We are considered essential services. You don't hear a lot about it, unfortunately, in the media. And that's not to say that the people who are on the front lines every day providing services at hospitals and clinics are not important. They are critical to this. However, those of us who are providing mental health services and support are just as critical. And we thank all those people that provide those services at a time of crisis. We're often the ones that kind of come up behind in a very quiet, not known way. And so there are a lot of services that we provide to people in their communities. So one of the things I want to start with, and you know, I'm a New York guy. I went to Hunter College of Social Work. So I worked in New York for many years before I moved to Florida. So I'm very familiar with the Northeast and the service delivery system, and the environment, if you will. Certainly Bob is a native New Jerseyan, so he knows it very well. In fact, I already had my 2 cups of coffee today and I'm ready to go. So, you know, one of the things that Bob and I talked about, and we have a colleague also that we spoke about, and one of our favorite movies is called The Bronx Tale. And some of you may be familiar with that. And there's a classic scene in it. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a story of a kind of a local neighborhood in Brooklyn. And there's a local guy, Sonny, who runs basically the neighborhood. He runs the numbers. He's a connected guy. And it's a great story. But there's a scene where there's some outsiders who come in and they descend on his local bar, you know, which is usually for like the neighborhood people. And these, you know, out of town guys, they're bikers and they're tough guys and they have a reputation for tearing up bars and so on. And there's a scene where these guys go into the bar and they basically, you know, create a problem, and he comes in and asks them to leave. And they said, "Oh, we're just here to have a drink and then we'll be going." He said, "Okay, that's fine." And then of course it turns into a problem. So he turns around, goes to the door and locks the door and comes back in and says to all of them, as only a New Jersey guy could say, "Now you can't leave." So this whole virus and this quarantine comes to mind, and I think, now you can't leave. So here we are, trapped, locked up, we can't leave, we can't get out. And you get that sense, just as those bikers did when they realized that they were locked in and there was no place else to go. They now had to face whatever was coming next. And in the scene in the movie, it wasn't a good outcome for them. And so the one thing that I take from that in comparison to what we're dealing with right now is similar to that scene is we really don't know what's coming next. I mean, we have some ideas. We're being told that the virus is kind of stabilized. There's news about that it might bump up again. There's different theories about when things should open and how they should open and how open they should be. And that only adds to the anxiety. That only adds to the feelings of isolation because, you know, at least if there's an event, a hurricane or I don't know, something that's a time-centered event, at least you know at some point the hurricane leaves and now you're left with the aftermath and you can clean up behind it and that's it. This is a little bit different. It's a lot different. It's not a little bit different. This is a lot different because now we're faced with, we don't really know when things will be completely open, and if so, how that will look. That adds to the anxiety. So if you look at the standpoint of those things that we're now dealing with this quarantine, and I know in the Northeast, particularly New Jersey and New York, y'all have been hit pretty hard. We have been hard hit here in Broward County. The rates of infection in South Florida, particularly in Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, which are the three southern counties on the East Coast, have been hit very hard with a lot of infections and a lot of deaths. And so while the rest of the state is in a position where they start to open, we're not. And I suspect that New Jersey and New York, at least portions of it, are in the same boat. So, you know, that creates a lot of issues for us. So, you know, in terms of putting some context on it, you know, the quarantine being one thing, human beings are wired and meant to have contact with one another. They're not meant to be isolated. So here we are in a position where we're being forced to be isolated, and maybe it's with our own families, and for some people that's good, and for some people that's not so good. We know that rates of domestic violence, we know that people are reporting higher levels of anxiety and stress, because we know that through surveys from our national association as well, that people are going online to take these kind of self-administered tests, and the rates of anxiety and depression have soared. I know in our own agency here, we have a hotline, warm line. Our calls have doubled, meaning people are just calling in just to talk to someone. So that's one of the issues that we're dealing with. This is also the fear of the disease itself, the illness. It's important to keep in mind, as deadly as it is, way more people recover from it than don't recover from it. And sometimes it helps to keep that perspective. The other issue is work, finances, and the anxiety about what's going to happen. Will there be work? And for some of you, especially in the realty community, you know, I'm sure the market has suffered some significant hits, and I'm sure there's a lot of worry about, well, how are we going to recover from this? If people are out of work, they won't be able to buy homes, or they won't be able to rent apartments, or you know, whatever their plans were. So there are real life issues that we're all dealing with, and those are things that are constant. The finances, you know, listen, you still got to pay your mortgage, you still got to pay your rent, you still got to pay your electric bill, you got to pay your cell phone bill. And as much as some companies have stepped up, and at least here and there have I know locally here, the Florida Power and Electric Company has announced that they've reduced rates by 20% for the month of May, which helps. But if you don't have money, 20%, you know, does that really help? You know, I don't know. I mean, people are in a really challenging position in terms of finances. One of the things that Bob had mentioned earlier to me, and honestly, I don't know why I hadn't considered it, was grief issues. You know, the rates of infection and the number of deaths that have happened, particularly in the Northeast, have been very high. There's a very good likelihood there are people on this call who have had family members who have passed away as a result, and the issues that are associated with you're not being able to have a funeral or have a memorial or to do the things that normally would happen in terms of the normal grief process have been interrupted. Just, you know, I mean, it has changed our lives so dramatically that our normal way of coping has kind of gone out the window. Yesterday I was sitting at my house and I heard a whole bunch of horns blaring, and looked outside, and my next door neighbor, their little girl, who I think was turning 8 yesterday, you know, people driving by waving to her and beeping the horns, and that was her birthday party. That became how they celebrated it. I mean, we have had to learn how to cope in a much different way than we're used to. This is all, it's all new to all of us. You know, so that adds to the stress. It adds to the level of frustration. You know, how do I deal with this? You know, the other thing to consider is we know that 1 in 5 adults are impacted with a serious mental illness. at some point in their lives. So you look at it this way. If I told you that you had a 1 in 5 chance of winning $1 million by purchasing a lottery ticket, you would think, wow, that's really good odds. I'm going to go out and buy a bunch of lottery tickets, right? But when we talk about mental illness and we say 1 in 5, all of a sudden that number becomes, oh, well, that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen in my family. And that's not a reality. So even before this virus hit and before the quarantine took place, there were already people in place who are suffering before any of this happened. So for those folks, this probably and most likely has only exacerbated whatever they're experiencing already. And for those people who are, quote, not the other 4, are probably faced with a lot of decisions and a lot of challenges. We've heard from a lot of parents who are concerned about what do they do with their kids. I don't know about you, but homeschooling with my kids is not something that I signed on for. So it has created for me a whole different way for me to do my life. It's not something I'm used to. And for a lot of people, it's not something they're used to. So we've had to make a lot of changes on the fly. And so it's created a lot of stress and pressure points for all of us. I know there were a number of people who signed up for this. I'm not sure how many we have on right now, but I know there's a lot of concern about what's going on and how do we deal with this. So we'll talk a little bit about what some of the options are and so on, but I'm going to give Bob a second if he wants to weigh in on some of this, what I've talked about. Bob?
Sure, thank you, Paul. I'm a pretty optimistic guy, and I believe despite these tremendous challenges that we're all facing, that in general, as a society, we're going to be able to survive this from a mental health aspect. And indeed, some of us will thrive, and there'll actually be some post-traumatic growth, as they say. However, having said that, not naive. I can see what's going on around here, and we're all worried about our families. We're all worried about our communities. If you're an employer, you're worried about your employees. You're worried, as I am, about your ability to make payroll. And frankly, we're all worried about ourselves too, which is also a reasonable worry. So you compound that with the isolation that Paul was talking about. Now you can't leave. What's going to happen is we're all going to have normal reactions to a really abnormal set of circumstances. And some of those normal reactions that we're all experiencing to some extent are things like anxiety, loneliness, traumatic stress, obsessions. In my case, forgetfulness. I've become more forgetful in the last couple of weeks than I've ever been in my entire life. So I'm having to take more notes. I'm having to compensate for that. And also vivid dreams. I'm also experiencing a lot of vivid in-color dreams that I wasn't prior to this event. So to some extent, we're all experiencing that to some level. But the good news, at least in my judgment, and those are really normal reactions to an abnormal set of circumstances that don't necessarily require treatment. What that is just, again, normal reactions. Now, having said that, Paul alluded to this, anyone that was in treatment prior to this event because they had a mental illness or an addiction or something of that nature really needs to continue to participate in that treatment and get the help that they need. Because this pandemic is not going to cure alcoholism. This pandemic is not going to cure schizophrenia. It's not going to cure depression. It's likely to make those issues worse. So it's very important if you or your loved ones are in treatment with a counselor or with a psychiatrist that you continue that treatment. And I know Paul's going to talk a little bit about what we can do to deal and mitigate with some of the normal reactions that we are having to an abnormal set of circumstances.
Okay, thanks, Bob. So we probably haven't told you anything you don't already know. what we'd like to do is then talk to you about, so what can we all do to kind of help mitigate some of this? I don't know about you, but one of the things that I've made a resolution to myself is to stop watching the news so much. If it's anything, and I'm sure it is, like it is there in South Florida, it is constant. You can't put on the TV, you can't open the paper, you can't put on the radio without a constant bombardment about what's going on and how ugly it is and how bad it is. One of the things that does is by constantly, exposing yourself to a constant barrage of information, is it increases your anxiety level, and it releases a naturally occurring substance in your body called cortisol. Cortisol is something that, when you have that fright or flight experience, where where you get panicked and you either run away or you stay. There's also another one where you just kind of stay in neutral. You don't know what to do. But cortisol is one of those things that helps, that causes your natural immunities to be decreased. And that's not good for you. So you're more prone to things like heart attacks and strokes. In a long exposure, cancer could, grow throughout your body. I mean, it just is. It's a bad place to be, and to be in that constant state of agitation and that constant state of being alert. It's really detrimental to your physical and mental health. It creates problems within your own ability to kind of adequately assess what's going on in the world around you, coupled with social media, and of course, even the media will play up these different angles of mixed messages about, I don't want to get into a political discussion about this, about what should be open and whether this is real or not. And again, aside from the political aspects of it, it's just not healthy. It's not healthy to be exposed to it. It's not healthy to kind of take it in. And now you have to think about, is this real? Is it not? Am I overreacting? Am I underreacting? And it creates increased anxiety. It's just not a healthy place to be. So I personally try to limit how much news I get. I'll listen in the morning just to see if there's any updates, which, quite frankly, there really aren't. I mean, it's pretty much the same news day in and day out. The numbers go up or down. The curve is flattening or it's not flattening. The etiology of the disease is such that it takes a long time for us to see results in terms of the numbers. So to expect to see a dramatic difference from one day to the next only creates more anxiety and more opportunities for you to worry about what's happening, coupled with the fact that we don't know what the future holds. I just was listening this morning, there's a new drug that's being touted as, it's limiting the impact of the illness. And so, but that's at a very, very basic stage. It's only in its infancy, but people are wanting to hang on to something that shows, hey, this is a good thing, and there's nothing wrong with that in terms of, you want to have some positive things. And as Bob mentioned, I think it really helps for us to maintain as much as possible a positive outlook, that there's a future, that we will come out of this. We've survived other tragedies in our country before. We'll survive this. We absolutely will. It will take its toll, but we will survive this. It will come out the other end of it. So just to kind of wrap that part of it up, I would limit how much news I'm exposing myself, and for that matter, my children to, depending on their age. You want to make it age appropriate so that they understand what it means. What you're going to show, what you're going to let your 6-year-old watch versus what you let your 16-year-old watch are going to be two different things. And your explanation should be patterned after what their age level is, as well as their maturity level. You know, there are some kids at age 16 are way more mature than other 16-year-olds. So what you say to them and how you say it and how you conduct yourself will go a long way in helping with their anxiety and their concerns about what's going on. Try to find things that you find pleasure in: painting, reading, cleaning the house. I'm an OCD house cleaning guy. My house is probably the cleanest it's ever been. I'm about to wear out my vacuum cleaner, but I find something therapeutic in it. That's me. That's what I find. That's what helps me. For other people, they'd say, well, that's crazy. I'm not going to do it. You don't have to do it that way. Find something that makes sense to you that you like doing. I mean, I used to go to the gym. The gym has been closed for 2 months. I can't do that. So I do other things to help me with, you know, maintaining my physical health. You know, so whatever it is that you've done, and maybe it's something you haven't done in years, and you thought, you know, I never, if I had the time, I would do this. Maybe there's a home project you've been meaning to get to. I think there's a certain therapeutic value in, you know, patching a hole in the wall that you've been looking at for months and you just didn't get around to it, and now you got it done. You know, like, it's an accomplishment. And those things, believe it or not, even the least little things sometimes can help you feel better. It does not have to be something that's going to change the world. It just has to change your world. And so whatever you can do that's going to help you feel some sense of accomplishment will help you. That will help reduce the cortisol in your body. It will help reduce the level of infection in your body. It will do all those things. Make sure to eat as healthy as you can. Instead of having, I don't know, a Hershey bar, have a potato chip, or a pretzel. You know, you got to be careful, because there are things that we do that are unhealthy for us, especially in this kind of environment. So, you know, like, get to those, like I say, get to those projects that are always the honeydews that you just never got to. Maybe it's an opportunity to do those things. Make and prepare meals together. Maybe that you find some level of comfort in doing that. I have a friend who said, you know, she's been doing meals that her mother used to make, and it brings some form of comfort from when she was a child and things were safer for her. And she does it with her daughter. So it's like it's a really good activity that they do together. And for some of you, that might be something you could do as a fun family activity. Maybe some of your family members will be into it and some of them aren't. It's okay. There's no one way to do this, and no one way to ride this roller coaster. I mean, you know, at least on a roller coaster, right? You're in the same car, going the same track, going up and down and doing the same curves all at the same time. That's not how this is going. Everyone does it in a different way. This is, you're on your own roller coaster car, all by yourself doing this. It's brand new to everyone. You don't know what curve is coming. You don't know what hill is coming. And that's what adds to the anxiety. So whatever you can do to kind of help prepare yourself for those things. One of the other things to watch for is your alcohol intake. You know, especially if you're working from home, you may look at the clock and say, well, it's 3 o'clock, you know, there's really nothing else going on. I'll open a beer or whatever. I think you just got to be aware of that you want to monitor how much alcohol intake that you're taking, because alcohol is actually a depressant. It's a drug that is a depressant. It will depress those things, those functions in your brain, and it'll depress them to add to the level of depression. So, you know, adding alcohol to the mix is not always a good thing, you know. So it's something to kind of monitor. It's also something that for people that are in recovery, there are online self-help meetings, there are online services. You know, telemedicine is huge right now. I just started my son with a therapist online, and he loves it because he can do it from the comfort of his bedroom, laying on his bed, speaking to his therapist. You know, I think that telemedicine has really come a long way. I had to have a consultation with my dermatologist a week ago, and I did it all online. I did it all via the phone. I did it on a Zoom, and showed her, you know, what I was concerned about. She made a called in for a prescription. I picked it up and I was good to go. So, you know, there are things that are available. There are services available. Take advantage of the technology that's really been, the technology has been there. Not a lot of people have used it, but there is technology. And now almost all of the organizations, the mental health, the addiction receiving facility and so on, have developed an online technology. And I'm sure Bob can talk about that because I'm sure his organization has done that. We have. And people are, one of the things we're finding is more people are attending via telemedicine than coming in person. So if there's an opportunity to find that, and don't be afraid to use the technology, especially for those of you who may be younger, who are more familiar with the technology and okay with using it, it's really a great alternative. So I think there are things that are at our disposal that we can use that can be really helpful. And clinicians have been trained in how to use this, and they're comfortable with it. Some of them are getting more better with it and more comfortable with it. But the services are there. Things have not gone away. Services exist. Services are available. If you're in crisis, pick up the phone and call someone. If your family member's in crisis, you need to pick up the phone and call someone. You need to reach out. Bob, can you talk a little bit about what services and what you all are doing?
Paul,
Yes.
we have a question. Is it possible to read the question to you?
Sure.
Maybe you'd be able to answer it. How can I stop being hard on myself for being unproductive, having an unproductive day? Some days I just need to stay on the couch, read a book all afternoon.
You know what the simple answer to that is? If that makes you feel good, do it. There's no right way or wrong way to do this. I think sometimes what happens is we can get really hard on ourselves. Remember, up until about 6 weeks ago, we were all working. We were going to work every day. For the realtors, you were going on calls. You were meeting with clients. You were looking for additional people to kind of help with staging, or like you were active. All of a sudden, that came to a screeching halt. It just stopped. And when that happens, there's something that in our psyche that tells us, oh, I don't know what to do with myself now. Unless I have a place to go and a person to meet with, I don't know how to do this myself. I'll be honest with you. At first, when I had to work from home, I was sure I was going to watch every Ellen episode that ever existed. I just couldn't do it. I mean, I realized things are happening, and I need to be part of it, from my position. And I set myself a schedule. So I made sure, one of the things that I made sure of is that I wake up at the same time every morning, regardless of whether I'm going into the office or staying home from the office. I think if you set up a schedule and you say, normally I would be in at 9:30, then be in at 9:30 at your desk, at your computer, whatever you need to do. I think sometimes having a structure helps to kind of organize your day a little bit. And then set yourself small goals. Like, today, I'm gonna find 3 new clients, and however you need to do that, and set your standards so that that's what you're gonna do. Find 3 new clients, and so before you know it, now it's 2 p.m, and actually maybe you got 2, or maybe you got none, but at least you felt like you were productive trying to achieve that you were, going after something. But I think organizing your time and organizing your work day, even though it's from home, helps with kind of giving you a structure to follow. Bob, you got any tidbits that
first to the kind person who asked the question, reading a book is a productive activity, particularly in the context of a pandemic. So I think now is the time really to practice radical self-acceptance. No one's going to get a perfect score in a pandemic. Certainly I'm not. But as Paul said, I think we need to set goals and do what we can. I also think it's very important to stay connected with people by text, by the phone, by a Zoom meeting. I'll give you two examples that have been very helpful to me. Every evening at 7 o'clock, I'm in a text group where basically for a half hour, we've been studying the songs of the British invasion from 1963 to 1970. Now that's silly, but I've been enjoying it. It's a distraction. I'm interacting with other human beings. Also, I'm in another text group, being from North Jersey, I can't help it, where we've been analyzing scenes of mob movies. That's remarkably silly, but I've been enjoying it. It's something to do. I'm able to forget about the pandemic and all the bad news, and there's nothing wrong with having fun. And there's nothing wrong with experiencing joy, regardless of what's going on outside our four walls.
Yeah, so, thanks, Bob. And just so you all know, and Bob and myself and another friend of mine, we also are participating in these ridiculous texts back and forth and chatting with one another. Humor's okay. If there's an opportunity to find something that you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that. And it can be a distraction even during the middle of a day. Like, I'll find something that someone posted and share it with Bob and my friends and our friend Steve, and we'll have like a little back and forth and then get back to work. Sometimes, if nothing else, I think this is, they talk about the new normal, whatever that means. I think it's an opportunity for us to reevaluate the nature of our relationships and and where we are with our friends and family. And at the end of the day, it makes you feel better, when you can have that human connection. Like I said at the beginning, we're wired for human connection. This is so the antithesis of what we are as human beings. To not have that opportunity, that creates a lot of that anxiety. It really, it just kind of lends itself to that. I saw a quote today, and I just want to share this with the group. And the quote was this: "Never be afraid to try something new. Remember, amateurs built the Ark, professionals built the Titanic." So I think from the standpoint of what you all can take away from any of this is there's no one way to do this. There's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do it. If you survive it, then you survive it. You've got to figure out what makes you feel okay, and what you find comfort in, because that's what's going to get you through. If you find joy with being with your family, and even with that, there are times when you need to take a break from everybody, and they need to take a break from you. And it's okay to say, you know what, I just need some me time. I just need some alone time. Or I'd like to have a family meeting or play a game together just because I need that interaction. For those of you who are living alone, reach out to people. I've developed a system where I have friends that we do, like a little cocktail party on Friday or Saturday night, and we just do it on FaceTime. And it's fun. I mean, at first I thought, well, this is ridiculous, but it was really fun to do. And so sometimes it means that you take a little bit of a risk to try something that you're not comfortable with, and maybe push your limits a little bit in terms of where you need to go with, whatever makes you feel okay. But for me, and I know for Bob, one of the things that we value is humor and the ability to laugh at ourselves and to try to not to take things too seriously. There's enough serious stuff going on right now. There's enough tragedy. There's enough just negative stuff happening on all levels. You don't need to bombard yourself with it constantly. In fact, I would limit, like I said before, I would limit my exposure to that as much as possible.
Did we lose Paul?
Am I there?
I think you're back now, Paul.
Okay. All right. I don't know where I cut out, but I think in terms of it's okay to try different things. It's okay to experiment with reaching out to people. Take the opportunity to reach out to someone that you've lost contact with. It could be a family member or a friend, someone that you haven't seen in 50 years or 100 years, whatever, because I'm sure they'd like to hear from you. Try something different, and if nothing else, it occupies your time. There's enough going on in terms of what our future is going to look like, and we really have very little control over what that's going to look like. So the only thing you can control is how you react to things and how you interact with people around you. So focus on that. Stay focused on the positive things. Stay focused on the people that you love and care about, who love and care about you, because I think ultimately that's how we'll survive all this. And if I have any last words for everyone is, much as Bob said, try to be optimistic, try to see a positive of this, because I believe, like I said before, that we will survive this. We have before, we will again. I think, there'll be new business processes for a lot of us and way we do our business. I know for us, and I know Bob feels the same way, that we've had to adopt things on the fly that in the past we may have been somewhat reluctant to take on, but we have surprisingly and supportively found, hey, you know what, it's working out pretty well. And I think there are opportunities that if you give yourself the time to look at them, that could be helpful.
And I would just like to add, virtually, pun intended, every single addiction and mental health, behavioral health provider, if you would, has gone virtual and has the ability to provide telehealth, to provide counseling, and to provide psychiatric services, including medication, if needed. So probably the best way to access that from a statewide point of view is a program that the Mental Health Association in New Jersey runs, which is our statewide affiliate. And it's sponsored by the New Jersey Department of Human Services. And it's referred to as Mental Health Cares. And if you're concerned about your own mental health or your own addiction or the mental health or the addiction of someone you love, you can reach out to them 7 days a week from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. And their number is 866-202-HELP, 4357. That's 866-202-HELP, 4357. And you can reach out to them, or your loved one can reach out to them simply for support, just to have someone to talk to, or if you need to be referred and linked to a healthcare provider, to a behavioral health care provider that can help you and support you on an ongoing basis. And they're there, they're ready, they're very active. I know most of the individuals that work there. They are more than competent, and they'd be willing and able to help you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Angela, I think we're kicking this back to you if we have any questions that we can answer, or if anyone wants to chime in with comments, we're open.
Hey, Paul, we actually have a question from the audience. Are there homeopathic or holistic medicines or vitamins or a special diet or foods you can recommend that will help alternative stress, depression, anxiety, and avoid having to get prescription to antidepressant meds?
There are. Unfortunately, I'm nowhere near an expert in that arena. I know I have a lot of friends who have been trying to eat healthy, eliminating sugar and starches and things like that. And but I'm in no means an expert in that area, so I don't think I can be particularly helpful there. But certainly there are. I would look online to see what people can come up with. I don't know it personally.
But there are some homeopathic principles that Paul addressed. Getting enough sleep is important. Eating a well-balanced meal, limiting your alcohol intake, and exercising. those type of things can definitely have a positive impact on depression. Do they treat clinical depression? Not necessarily, but it would certainly have a positive impact, and those things would certainly have a positive impact on some of the normal reactions in regards to stress and depression that we're having to these abnormal set of circumstances.
Thank you. And another question we have, I'm working from home and I feel like I have less time. I have a hard time shutting off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that I've heard that from a lot of people. I've heard from people who say, I'm working more now from home. Again, it's the same principle for the question that came up. I find myself kind of sitting on the couch reading the book, and as Bob said, that's not a bad thing. I'm going to say the same thing is, if you have a schedule, you need to try to stick to it. So if your normal work hours are 10 to 6 or 9 to 5 or noon to 8, whatever it is, you need to try to stay to that and let people know, I'm sorry, I'm not available after 8 p.m. or whatever. But you need to stay to it because one of the natural tendencies is that, you know what, I'm not doing anything anyway. I might as well do this. What happens is you don't give your brain and your mind a chance to relax and to disconnect if you do that. That's not good for you. You're not fresh then, because now what's happening is, you're thinking about, well, I told them to do this. Now I want to, maybe they need to do this, and this is the follow-up to that. And before you know it, you're now into a whole nother thing for another 2 or 3 hours. So go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I always remind myself, Winston Churchill took an afternoon nap during World War II. So if he was able to take an afternoon nap, I could avoid going online after 8 o'clock at night. And that's for my mental health, just like Winston needed his afternoon nap.
That's all the questions we have. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul and Bob. The information that you delivered to our members, I know that they have really liked and will benefit from it. Before we go, we're going to hear just a few words from Steve Utley, the CEO and founder of Health Alliance Network, and he's the one that helped coordinate today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today, Steve.
Thank you so much, Angela. I appreciate it. First of all, I'm going to thank everyone at the New Jersey Realtors Association for everything they've done for their membership. It seems like there's an association for everything out there, even association of pool owners and everything. Most associations, they talk about what they do for their membership, but I have to tell you, New Jersey Realtors really deeply care about the members of the New Jersey Realtors Association. We've worked closely with the New Jersey Realtors Association, specifically Angela, Mary, Valerie, Maureen, and a few more people that I probably failed to mention. But we put together a plan for all of the members of the New Jersey Realtors. Health Alliance Network is a telehealth telemedicine company. We provide core medical services, medical, dermatology, behavioral health and counseling, and some other core services that we do provide. Oh, there we go. I love that part. Our core services have been increasingly popular since this pandemic. When we started this company back in 2016 as a concept, telehealth and telemedicine as a concept, we had a hard time getting anyone to listen to us. And now here it is in 2020, everyone that we talked to back in 2016 and 17 and 18 and 19 are following up with us going, hey, that telehealth you were telling me about is a real thing. And it absolutely is. We ran a survey yesterday of 4,500 people in the United States. And the survey basically asked, would you consider, it asked a lot of questions, but one of the questions, would you consider telehealth or telemedicine services for medical treatment, dermatology treatment, and behavioral health treatment? In all three of those categories, it was about 80 to 85% yes. That would be my first choice. Now, if we went back 6 months, those numbers would have been reversed. It would have been 80% no, I want to see a doctor face-to-face, and 20% telemedicine. It is exactly flipped. Everyone has heard about telemedicine now if you're part of this pandemic in the United States, and telemedicine has become a real thing. It's very, very effective. I'm sure Bob and Paul will be able to tell you, they both mentioned that they now have telehealth services available for counseling, which is fantastic. We find that just in some of our surveys, we find that people would actually rather prefer to use telemedicine for behavior counseling than a face-to-face visit. They feel more comfortable. They can stay in their own environment. They don't have to leave home. They don't have to make those 2 or 3 week out appointments. I don't know about New Jersey, but in South Florida, it's 2, 3, 4 weeks to get an appointment with a counselor here. Fantastic. Now, let me tell you the really cool thing that the New Jersey Realtors Association has done for their membership. Our regular price for our services is $45 a month for the household. It's month to month. You can cancel anytime. That includes medical dermatology and behavioral health counseling with no copay, no deductible, and no per visit fee. The New Jersey Realtors Association has negotiated a special pricing model for the members of NJR, and that pricing model is $14.99 per month. That's a $30 discount off of our retail price. So for $14.99 per month, you have medical, dermatology, behavioral health for your entire household. Everyone that has an address in that household is able to use the service. Everyone that has an address in that household is entitled to no copay, no deductible, and no per visit fee. The other really, really neat thing that they negotiated with us is they wanted, it was very important to them, to the NJR, it's very, very important to them that their members get the first month free so they can try the service to see how they like it. So in addition to getting the discounted rate of $14.99 a month, your first month is free. Just go to njrrealtor.com/membership, member perks. You'll see our Health Alliance Network logo there. It'll take you to a landing page and enter the discount code NJR. When you enter the discount code NJR, your first month is free. Absolutely no charge whatsoever. I believe that does about everything that I have to say. I appreciate it so much, Angela. Anything else I can answer today?
I don't think so, Steve. We truly are happy that you're able to put this together for us. And on behalf of New Jersey Realtors and all our presenters this morning, I want to thank you for joining today's webinar. Be well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Mary. Thanks,
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.